Alright everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about a problem that popped up on the frontier during the 1870s between the Colt Single Action Army and the Smith & Wesson Schofield 45. And truly, this is just a resupply problem. This problem has been around since the beginning of warfare. It has always plagued warfare, and it probably will forever. Today, a lot of these issues we've learned from. And a lot of the issues that we have fixed is because of standardization of caliber and weaponry. So let's talk about this problem and how they fixed it. Today we're going to start with the companies, their founders, and then we'll get to the weapons, and then we'll get to the ammunition itself. So this gentleman is Samuel Colt. Samuel Colt started the Colt's Arms Factory. There's a lot about Samuel Colt. I really don't want to go into much of it because it's not very prudent to the story. He invented the company and he was the founder. But he did not invent the gun that we're talking about today, the Colt Single Action Army, as you see here in this photo. This was this man, William Mason. William Mason and a man named Charles Richard. And sorry guys, I could not find a photo of Mr. Richards. So now we'll talk about Smith & Wesson. This is Horace Smith and this is Daniel Wesson, founders of the Smith & Wesson Company. They founded it in 1852, but it ended up turning into the Volcanic Company, which they sold to Winchester Firearms. But Smith & Wesson, as we know it today, started in 1856 with the Smith & Wesson Revolver Company. And this patent right here by Roland White is what made Smith & Wesson power of its day. Mr. Roland White created his patent, and he actually went to Colt first to try to sell it, and Colt was not interested. And the patent was for the bored-through cylinder. The bored-through cylinder created the ammunition that we know of today. Before the bored-through cylinder and the ammunition that we know of today, there was the paper cartridge, and before that it was just loose powder and ball, and you would have to load from the front, cram it down, and put a cap on the rear. But this standard of loading in the front, cramming it down with a rod, and putting a percussion cap or a flintlock was the standard for a very, very long time. And like most things that are amazing, it was before its time, and people didn't realize the value in it yet. And looking at this patent again, you'll notice the patent date is April 3rd of 1855. That was before the Civil War, and yes, there were a couple cartridge guns in the Civil War, being the Henry lever action rifle. But I want you guys to remember the paper cartridge, for I will do a video on them soon. Well, after those explanations, this is the actual pistol we're talking about. Well, not this actual pistol, this is the Smith & Wesson number 3. Now, this is a man called General Schofield. General Schofield liked the Smith & Wesson number 3, but wanted it to be able to open easier, so he moved the latch on the top right corner where you see the hammer. The latch on the number 3 you lift up to open. On the Schofield, it's on the bottom, and you actually pull it back to open, which makes it much easier to open on horseback. So now you know both firearms in this story, the Smith & Wesson Schofield and the Colt Single Action Army. So now we could talk about the ammunition. The one on the left is the .45 Colt, and the one on the right is the .45 Schofield. Forgive this picture, for the one on the left, the .45 Colt has a brass bullet. It should have a lead bullet at the tip of it, like the Schofield does. Now you can see there's an obvious difference in size. The .45 Colt is longer than the .45 Schofield, and the .45 Schofield actually has a larger rim. Alright, so the .45 Colt had a 250 grain bullet traveling roughly 900 feet per second. The .45 Schofield had a 230 grain bullet traveling at around 850 feet per second. So on the frontier, when the resupplies wagons would show up, people with the Schofields were actually ending up with Colt's ammunition. And the Colts were ending up with Schofield ammunition. On the Colt Single Action Army, the troopers actually became pretty smart about it and tried putting the Schofield ammunition in it, and it would fit, obviously, because it was shorter. It was the same size diameter, it was just shorter. Now the problem with it is it had a rim, and the rim only allowed it to load 3 rounds per cylinder. There was one small silver lining over this whole event, was the fact that when they tried the Schofield ammunition in the Single Action Army, the Schofield ammunition, being that the projectile was lighter, going a tiny bit slower, they noticed it had a lot less recoil. They were much more accurate with the ammunition, and they felt that the gun shot better with this ammunition. But when it came to the Schofield, the Colt Single Action Army, the .45 Colt round would not fit. It was too long, and so there was nothing they could do. They were basically stuck without ammunition. So what does the United States military decide to do about this? Well, sorry to tell you, they threw out the Schofield. They decided that the Colt Single Action Army was good enough, and they created a new round. Well, throwing out the Schofield is a little harsh. They didn't throw it out completely. They just decided they weren't going to get any more and start phasing out their other ones. Apparently, most records I could find, they only had about 9,000, which is not very many. So about that new round, that's it right there in the middle. So why did the Army go out of the way to create a new cartridge when they're throwing the Smith & Wesson out, when it's not a problem anymore, right? Well, they saw the benefits of the less recoil of the Smith & Wesson round. And so that's what they kept it for. The less recoil and the accuracy was greatly improved. So they figured those outweighed the benefits of having a more powerful round. So like most things in history, there is something of it today still living. The .45 ACP was actually designed to have the exact same characteristics as the round that replaced the .45 Colt with the Schofield. So if you shoot .45 ACP today, you'll know exactly what it's like to fire the .45 Schofield round that was modified.